and a sort of center console bit going down the middle there like the actual car has, and then a handbrake. Hi, welcome to Sven's Bricks. This is another episode of converting the old 6-stud wide Speed Champions to the new 8-wide format. And in this video we're going to be tackling the 1969 Chevrolet Camaro. I think the original design for this is still pretty good, but it is a bit thin. But it is definitely one of the better of the old sets. You may notice that there's a bit of blue here. That's because I actually salvaged this from my children's mixed up Lego. And I couldn't find the black piece there, but I'm hoping that's not going to matter because I'm either going to replace it or I'm going to hide it. I'm hoping this is going to be a relatively straightforward conversion this time round. There's only one or two parts really that I'm a bit concerned about. First of all would be the front of the car here, where I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do about the sticker at the front. I may try for the first time ever to create my own sticker there. For the windscreen I have thought ahead this time and I picked up one of these, which I think is going to do the job. And then I've even ordered from Bricklink a few of these pearlescent modified plates for the sides of the car and the back and the front, because those are harder to come by in that colour. So as usual, we're going to begin by just picking the car apart into larger sections so that we know how things were before. I might just start just with that. And for this one we are going to be using one of the newer 6-stud wide chassis pieces. I'm then going to remove more from this front section, so that whole front end of the car there, which leaves us with the wheelbase and a 2x4 plate. I'm going to pull the wheels out and replace that with a own-made wheelbase and a 4x4 plate. I can then already go onto our chassis. For the front section, I'm literally just adding a 4-long slot piece where we have a 2-long, an extra one of these slot pieces where we have the red one at the bottom, 2 4x1s instead of a 1x6, and a third one where I have a 1x2, as well as another small slot bracket piece and a couple of black cheese slopes. I just pulled that light section off and realised that this isn't a plate, this is a tile, so I'm going to replace that with tiles. For this sloped piece with the sticker on the front, I'm literally for now just going to use a 1x4 plate with a couple of grey slopes on the sides and one of the grilled pieces, and then we'll see whether we can figure out something for the sticker at the end of the build. So that almost completes the front section. The only bit that's left here is to fill in this gap at the side here, and I'm doing that with a 1x1 and a 2x1 plate. That can now already be added to the wheelbase and the chassis, and we can start lifting off the wheel arches from the original model. That has left a little gap underneath here where this plate sat before, so we need to replace that with a 6-long plate, and I'm going to lift this whole sort of engine block piece off in one here, so I'm going to replace that one with a 6x long, the blue with a 4x long. I'm going to add an extra red 2x4 brick in there, and then I'm also going to add a 4x4 grey in there and a 4-long tile just underneath the intake there. Okay, and that's what we end up with. So we're just going to need to lift these wheel arches up slightly and get that back and that piece back in again underneath. And because we're extending the length of the car with this chassis piece, we've created a gap here. I'm going to fill that in with this. So we have a couple of plates at the bottom, a brick, a couple of tiles on the very top there, and this bit here needs to be raised up a level so that it lines up with the central white stripe. And then I'm going to have to figure out how I'm going to fill in these bits. Which bits should be black, which bits should be white a bit later on in the build. Moving on from there, I'm going to try to remove these panel pieces without doing too much damage, like that, and like that. Due to the fact that we're using a different chassis piece here, I've actually prepared a new version of the side, which looks like this. So it's just a 1x6 plate on top of a 2x6 plate, and then from there we put the sloped parts back on, and the double cheese wedges. I've removed this red plate and red brick from this side, and that's because I want this to be flush with the bodywork, and in order to do that I need this bit to be free here and for it to sit just over those there, like so. But now I need to just do the same on this side. And then we can put our side on there as well. Moving on to the backrests of the car, I'm placing a 1x6 plate here and a couple of jumpers, as well as another 1x6 tile so that we can then have our backrests like so. We can then place these stickered side parts back on. I'm just putting a 2x2 plate on the back of those for now. I think we might as well put our wheelbase on as well. After quite a bit of deliberation, I've decided that I'm going to go with the street version of the Camaro. This is for two main reasons. Firstly, I vastly prefer the street version. I think it's a beautiful car, and the original set, it was a bit disappointing that you couldn't build a street version because the back tyres were much bigger and the back wheel arches were different from the front wheel arches. Secondly, I've also asked you, the audience, which one you would prefer, and although some of you would have liked to have seen both, I think for this video at least, I'm going to go with just the street version because that was the most popular choice. So in order to do this, I've actually purchased a couple of extra wheel arches that are the same as the front wheel arches. The wheel arches on the original car are pretty much identical front and back. So to use the wheel arches that came in the set, I don't think would have looked as good. So I'm going to begin by strengthening the build a little bit by picking off the wheel arches, adding in a 1x6 black plate there, and two 1x6 black plates in there. From there, I can then remove our 1x4 snot piece from the original build, place that there, and then basically we need to convert these four sections here for the back end. So looking at the real car, there's actually two exhaust pipes, one on each side here, which are completely missing from the original model. I'd quite like to include those, so I'm just going to lift that off completely, and then we're going to replace the 1x6 plate that's underneath there with a 1x8. We're going to move our sloped pieces over, and then we're going to build the exhaust using one of these little barred pieces, and we're going to clip on one of these modified plates. I'm using square pieces here because the exhaust is sort of oblong or rectangle shaped, so they're not actually circular, so I thought that these were pretty close to the original design. And we're then going to finish that off with a couple of one wide slopes like that. Moving on from there, we're just going to remove the plates from the original build, and then we're going to lift these bracket pieces off one by one. And we're going to add in one of our own and place them all on a 1x8 plate, which are then all going to sit on our new exhaust section, like that. Next part's pretty straightforward. We need a new 1x8 plate, and then we're just going to lift off the parts from the original onto there. And we're going to add in our own 1x1 snot pieces in between. Move the tail lights over, and our 1x4 snot piece into the middle, and then finally a couple of 1x1 tiles to fill out that middle section. It would have been nice to have had a 1x4 tile here to put the sticker on, but I don't have an extra set of stickers at the moment, so we'll live with it like this for now. So this is just going on top of there, and we have a completed rear end taillight section, which we can then place onto the model. I'm going to continue from the very rear of the car by placing a couple of 2x3 plates here, and then moving over the little cheese wedges onto the back there. So I ran into a bit of trouble whilst experimenting with parts for the rear window, and discovered that our windscreen actually wasn't going to fit in here, because previously I had pieces that were just preventing it from sitting in there. So I've lifted off the sides and I've just removed the double cheese slopes and placed these instead onto a black 2x6 plate underneath there. And then on top of that, I've added a 1x6 tile. It's a bit square compared to the original car, but it's about as close as we're going to get, I think, whilst being able to use this windscreen piece, which I think is important. I'm not totally sure yet. I'll have to see a bit later, but I think that I quite like this window piece here. So I've lifted this up just a couple of plates just to see how it will look, but I think it's relatively accurate. It should probably come down a stud closer, so a stud further this way, but because of the seats here, I'm prevented from doing that. But I'm going to go with this just for now, because it will allow me to put in the black pillars in the side here, and then build up the wheel arch again. So I'm chucking a 1x4 brick in directly behind the backrests, And then on top of that, I'm placing a 4x6 tile. From there, I've added a 1x4 plate onto here, and then I've added another 1x4 plate with one of these sloped parts onto the side. And then in order to try and get that angled pillar at the back there, I've used a red 1x1 plate, a black brick, and an inverted slope. And I've just stuck that in behind that longer slope there, which comes, I hope, close to that back pillar. Before moving on, I'm just going to lift the backrests back out again because they're moving around a bit. I'm going to lock them a bit more into place using a 1x3 tile, and then on the outsides there with little 1x1 tiles. This will be harder to do once I've put the back window into place, and I think it will just help to finish off the interior a bit. And then as well as that, we're going to add a 2x4 tile and a 1x4 tile in there for our window to rest on. Okay, and we're just going to build up the wheel arches a little using a 1x1 plate to fill in that gap. And then on top of that, we're placing a 1x2, just like the original build. And then a couple of these sloped pieces, just like the original build. So from here, we're just going to add a couple of black cheese slopes onto there to continue that diagonal line there. I'm going to add 1x3 plates here as well, just to push that back pillar forward even more. And then from there, I'm actually going to use one of these 6x6 tiles that came with the Batmobile, which has then been switched for 6x2 tiles. And that is a pretty good roof, I would say. We need to do something with these bits on the side here because this stick out a bit too far on the back there. So I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to remove the 2x2 plate that we had on the back, and I'm going to replace it with one of these little bracket pieces, which should allow us to just smooth off that edge a little bit. Yeah, I think that is a better look. It still sticks out a little bit, but it's not as prominent. It looks a bit more deliberate. So I'm about to show you what I've done with the interior, but before that, I just wanted to explain what I've done in order to strengthen this front section a little bit. I also needed to lower this one plate in order to get the windscreen in at the right height. So there were bricks in here before. I've replaced those with two 4x4 plates in order to just lower that one level. And then on the side of the wheel arch here, I've also removed the brick that was there and replaced that with a 1x2 plate and two 1x3 plates. So those will just now go back in there. Our side can then go back on. And I can show you a little bit in the interior here. So I've just added in a brick in here and a brick in there, along with our steering wheel and a little dashboard and a sort of center console bit going down the middle there like the actual car has. And then a little handbrake in there as well, just for fun. I've also added a 1x4 plate onto the sides there, just a bit of trim for the door panels, just to add even more of a luxury feel to the inside. Next, I moved on to the back, and here I need to remove these because I want to smooth off this back section like the original build has. So I'm actually going to lift these sloped parts back out again and remove the 1x4 plates and replace those with 1x3s in order to make space for cheese slopes here instead. So we're almost there. I guess the last section here is to work on the tiling on the front here. The actual real car that I'm basing this on doesn't have matching stripes at the back with the front. So I'm going to be shifting these white bits in a stud and putting in black. And then I'm going to be creating my own sticker using these black lines on the official Lego sticker sheets. However, before that, let me show you what I've done with the front of the car. So I've actually removed a layer here. And I've placed in a couple of jumpers for the lights, and I've put in real lights or real pieces there instead of the stickers. They look a bit more accurate, slightly more inset from the edge. And then in the middle here, I've used these sloped grille pieces from the front of the Ideas Ecto 1. I'm actually quite pleased with the look of that. For the back as well, I swapped out the exhaust pieces that I was using for wrench pieces. I think that the modified plates that I had before were just way too big. So I think that this gives a better look, even if the shape isn't perfect. Unfortunately, I don't have two of these in the sort of chromed colour, so I had to use one in the dark grey. But that will do for now, and I think that gives a really good look to the back end. I think all that remains here is the tiling on the front, so let's get to grips with that. And there we have the completed front end. I'm actually really happy with the way that turned out, and the sticker actually worked really well here. I used two of these sloped pieces at the front here, just one stud in width, so that the sticker could sit on either side of them. And yes, the sticker does overlap here, but it really creates a good look, so I think it was worth doing. You may have noticed me struggling a bit with these pieces that keep falling out like this. They are only sat on one stud on the side here, and I've tried to find a solution to that. The thing is that the real car has a bit of shaping that comes out just before the wheel arch here, and I wanted to keep that. So if this annoys you and you want to have a bit more structure here, you could replace the 2x6 plate that's underneath there with a 2x8 plate, like I've done on this side, and then just keep this a lot flatter. But as I say, I think it loses the shape a little bit from the real car. Personally, this is going to be a display car anyway, so it won't matter so much when you're not touching it all the time. I guess that's it for another conversion video. Again, I ran into some challenges with this one, but I really enjoy overcoming them, and I feel really pleased with the end result. If you're keen to see a drag racing version of this car, please let me know in the comments, and I'll see about doing a follow-up video to this. I will also at some point be making instructions. Make sure you drop a like as well if that's something that you would like to see. I think that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.